From deep in the Burbank Media District, it's time for another edition of myBurbank Talks, presented by the staff of myBurbank. Now, let's see what's on today's agenda as we join our program.
Hi, welcome back to myBurbank, myCommunity. My name is Ashley Erikson. I'm a myBurbank reporter, and today I have with me Alisa Nelson, who is here to talk about a charity softball tournament her and her husband are organizing on February 3rd to raise money for congenial heart defects in honor of their son, 5-year-old Charlie, who was born with half of a heart. Thank you for joining us today and talking about your son and this tournament. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So tell me about Charlie. First of all, he's 5 now.
Yes.
And tell me what his story is, what his heart defect is that you've been dealing with these last 5 years.
Yeah. So Charlie is 5 years old, like you said. He started TK this past year. He's super sweet, happy, crazy little boy. You would never know looking at him unless you knew that something was actually wrong. So he has something called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which basically means that he was born with half of his heart severely underdeveloped, the left side, as well as the different structures on that side, on the left side, super duper small. Mm-hmm. So, for example, like his aorta, which comes out the top of the heart, is a left-sided part of the heart. It was so small, it was basically like the size of a strand of spaghetti uncooked.
Wow.
When he was born. So he also was missing the left ventricle, which is the main pumping chamber to the heart, as well as a few other things. It's like 4 things are involved with the defect.
And you're a NICU nurse at Children's Hospital.
Yes.
And so you've been around very fragile babies, and you were pregnant there when you got this diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So you knew ahead of time, you found this out in the ultrasound?
Yes, I found out about the big anatomy scan ultrasound, I think it was like 21 weeks, when they check everything. And, it's crazy because he's our 3rd child. So we have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old also. And, we waited a long time before we had kids, in part because we were so young when we got married and we wanted to establish the careers and get the house and all that stuff. But also because I was working in the NICU for probably 7 or 8 years before we even had our first child. I was terrified from all the things that I saw, all the sick babies, all the people who had done everything right and still had a sick child. And I was just so afraid that was going to be us. It was probably one of my biggest fears.
Yeah.
Before we had kids.
Do you think that being a nurse, though, and being around that has really prepared you to take this on with Charlie?
I do. I think as far as the knowledge of the day-to-day, like the meds, the inpatient stays in the hospital and the information and being familiar with things, yes. In a lot of ways, it has kind of made it a lot worse because I know the fears of the worst-case scenarios.
Yeah.
And I remember taking care of patients, the day that we got the diagnosis, I remember immediately thinking, oh, this is bad. And my husband, he has no medical background. And so he didn't know how bad it was. He didn't know what to base that on. And I remember driving home from the ultrasound that day and thinking about patients that I had taken care of with this diagnosis.
So you had already heard of this before. Is this something that comes into the hospital often?
It's a pretty rare diagnosis,
Okay.
But because I work at Children's, we get all of the worst cases or the most severe significant cases.
Yeah.
Children's has a entire heart institute, so almost all of the cardiac patients are treated on the 2nd floor, whereas the NICU is on the 3rd floor. So most of these patients do go to the 2nd floor. However, there are quite a few of this diagnosis or other cardiac diagnoses that are going to be in the hospital more long-term or chronic as infants, and so they will come to the NICU for more like long-term versus acute care that they will get on the 2nd floor.
Yeah.
So we are familiar with the diagnoses and taking care of these patients too.
Yeah.
And this isn't one that we would see super often, but I knew that it was a significant one. And my mind immediately went to these couple patients that I had taken care of, one of which had a very poor outcome, and just immediately think of like the worst case scenarios all the time.
So you mentioned that your husband has no medical background and didn't really understand or grasp the severity of it. So what was that turning point where he really understood what was going on?
I just remember looking at him during the ultrasound or right after we got the information and being like, "This is bad." And he was like, "Well, how bad?" I was like, "Bad. This is really bad." And, I kind of was spiraling from there and thinking about these patients that I had taken care of in the past. And um, he ended up reaching out to our good friend who is a neonatal nurse practitioner who used to work with me at Children's, who they've moved away since, but they're like our best friends. And he texted her that night and was like, "I just need to know, like, what are we dealing with here? Like, on a scale of 0 to 10, how bad is this?"
Hmm.
And she responded with, "This is a 10." And I think that kind of shook him a little bit and made him realize, like, "Oh yeah, shoot, this is definitely serious then."
Yeah.
And that kind of brought him into a little bit of reality.
And so you've had these busy 5 years with
Hmm.
him, right? I mean, from the time that you gave birth
Yes.
till recently, he's been in treatments and surgeries. So walk me through what the last 5 years have been like with Charlie.
Okay. So we knew he was gonna have this, before he was born, obviously. So everything was very planned out. He was born at Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital, which is right behind Children's,
Hmm.
so that he could be transported there as quickly as possible. Right away when he was born, they took him and immediately started an IV and a special medication to make it so that his heart would be okay. He went to the NICU there. He had some lines placed. The CHLA transport team came, and there were a number of people that I'm very familiar with, coworkers and friends, were on the transport team coming into my delivery suite, my labor and delivery suite, which was a little awkward since I had just given birth, but it was kind of reassuring as well
Yeah.
because I knew and trusted these people wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And, they took him in the incubator, the transport incubator. They put him in the ambulance. They drove him literally like around the corner into Children's and then brought him up to the cardiothoracic ICU. So that was the night he was born.
Hmm.
And then they stabilized him. He was there a few days. He actually came early. We had a scheduled induction date and then a scheduled surgery date based on that. But he
Okay.
came like 3 weeks early. So
Oh,
everything
wow.
was we were just kind of
So now you're
shuffling.
also dealing with a very small baby, smaller than you anticipated,
A
right?
little. I mean, actually, all my babies were like
Big-
almost the exact same size, within like an ounce, all three of them, which is crazy because the first two were a week late and he was 3 weeks early.
Your body's like, this is the
This is
amount
this
I can do, and
exactly.
pick it up.
It's like, this is what my placenta can handle, is this size child.
Yep.
So they took him right up there to CTICU, and Matthew went with him. My mom stayed with me. So we had a few extra days with him that wasn't originally planned, which was actually really nice. It was through the weekend, and we got a lot of time to just like hold him and work on feedings by mouth, which we knew would be an issue later, and just practice,
Yeah.
love him and all that stuff. So when he was 5 days old, he went for his first open heart surgery, and that's called the Norwood. They also place a little shunt, which is basically the size of like a straw diameter to help with blood flow. And like basically his entire circulation was based on that little straw.
Hmm.
That's the riskiest surgery of all. And after they do that surgery, they leave his chest open for 2 days.
Wow.
So you could actually see his heart beating in his chest for 2 days.
Wow.
It has like a film, like a covering
Yeah.
over it, but still you can see it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very scary as a parent just to be like, see your child so vulnerable like that.
Yeah. And for me, like we both knew what to expect at that
Mhm.
point. And I had seen those patients in the hospital before myself too, but knowing that it's your baby is so different. And for my husband too, who's never seen anything like this, it was a lot.
Yeah.
But he actually recovered fairly well from that surgery. We were there, I think, like 3 weeks total for that hospital stay. We went home. The time between that and the second surgery, which he got when he was 5 months old,
Hmm.
is called the interstage period. So that period is very intense. We have to do a lot of monitoring at home. We had to check his oxygen levels and his vital signs several times a day. We had to weigh him every day. If there was any drop in his weight or he didn't gain enough weight, we had to notify them because that could mean that something was wrong.
Were you working at this time, or you took a leave of absence?
No, I was off. Thank goodness. I was off. And he was in and out of the hospital quite a few times. He had to end up going on oxygen at one point because his oxygen levels were just very low. We couldn't really figure out why. He had 2 cardiac catheterizations in that time between the 2 surgeries. And then he had his second surgery when he was like about 5 months old. Then, I mean, we're just in and out of the hospital.
Yeah.
So
you post a lot on Instagram, so you keep people really updated. But it does feel like you always have something going on. He's had 3 surgeries total.
Yes.
Right?
So his 3rd surgery, he was almost 4 years old.
Okay.
So we're coming up on 2 years since that one.
Yeah.
So in all, he's had the 3 open heart surgeries, and I think 5 or 6, I'm losing track, 5 or 6 of the cardiac catheterizations, which is when they go up through the femoral artery and they use fluoroscopy and dye, and it's kind of like moving x-rays. So they can like see and get measurements and check things out. And sometimes they do interventions that way. They placed a stent like that once. They've ballooned arteries. A lot of people know it as like angioplasty or something like that.
And I saw something about stem cells, I think you were doing too, right?
Yeah. So that is kind of where HeartWorks, which is the organization that we're raising money for with the tournament, that's kind of where they come in. And that's the connection there. Okay. So coincidentally, I mean, so much of this story I feel like is serendipitous in a way. We were diagnosed during Heart Month, during Heart Week.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy. And is part of why we're doing the tournament in February as well. Because February is Heart Month.
Okay. So his birthday is...
No, just when he was diagnosed.
While you were pregnant.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I don't know the exact dates. I think it's usually like the 2nd week of February. So the dates exactly change each week or each year, sorry. So I don't know what the exact dates are this week, but that's the Saturday, like right before it starts.
Okay. And so he got this nickname, Charlie the Champion, which obviously makes sense because of everything he's gone through. But where did that name come from, and who gave it to him? And it stuck, right? It's his little nickname.
Yeah. When I was pregnant, and after we had the diagnosis, and we were starting to look into other families and social media and see other heart warriors online and get inspiration from that. That was like the first thing I did. The day that we got diagnosed, I was like, I know what this looks like in the hospital, and I need to know what this looks like long term and outside of the hospital. So that day I had an amnio, so I had to bed rest like the rest of that day. We went home, and immediately I hashtagged HLHS. And I saw like happy, smiling kids that looked like they were living normal, happy, good lives. And I saw this little girl, and she was in a pool in Hawaii, and she was smiling, and her name was Zola, and they called her Super Zola.
Aww.
And her thing was like superheroes and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, this is what this can look like. She had also come to Children's from Hawaii to have her surgeries, and she had recently finished the 2nd surgery. So I was pregnant at this time. So they're like about a year ahead of us. And they were here in California the whole time for her surgeries, and then went back home to Hawaii. And there she was in a pool smiling with her incision. And she just looked like the happiest little girl.
I'm sure it brought you a lot of hope.
It did. It was like eye-opening that I was like, what? This can look like that? Because all I knew was these super sick babies in the NICU. But anyway, we noticed that, like, for example, her and a number of other people that we found online, they had these little like tags or whatever that they would call their kids. There was Liam the Lionheart and Super Zola and Brave Maeve and like all these different things like that. And I was, we need to think of something. We knew his name was Charlie already, so I just kind of tried to go off of that, and it was like oh, Charlie the Champion. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
That sounds great.
Yeah, so I just came up with it and it stuck. And it's, with time, it's like with our good friends, it's turned into a thing with like boxing, like fighting,
Yeah.
fighting the congenital heart disease. Boxing has been a big thing. We had, their actually, this story is so crazy. Their youngest ended up being born on the same exact day as Charlie,
Wow.
which is insane because we both had the same due date, coincidentally, and they both came
3 weeks?
3 weeks early
Wow.
on the same day. So we ended up having like a joint birthday party for them that was a boxing thing. It was like round one, when they turned 1 year old, and he's got like these little red boxing gloves we always hang up. My husband has a tattoo that's like has a heart with boxing gloves, and then you'll see the logo for the tournament.
Yeah.
Has if it's I think it's hard to see, it's kind of towards the bottom, but it's like a heart in the shape of boxing gloves.
That's so sweet.
Thanks.
Does he know that that's his name? Does he like?
Yeah,
I'm
he
Charlie-
knows.
Yeah,
He
like,
knows.
He knows that that's it.
Yeah, he used to go around introducing himself like that, like
That's
at the
fantastic.
park or whatever. He'd be like, "I'm Charlie the Champion. I'm Charlie the Champion."
Now that he's in TK, does his teacher call him that?
No. Now he's just Charlie. But
That's very cute. Oh, that's so cute. So what is the future for Charlie? I mean, he's in TK. He's finished his major surgeries, right?
Yeah.
And so what does the long term now look for you?
So now when they give people the diagnosis, this diagnosis has changed so much over the years. These surgeries didn't even exist until about 30 years ago. So in the past, all of these children died. It was incurable. And now that they've had these surgeries for a while, people are living until they're into their 30s, some 40s, with their original hearts. And when we were diagnosed, they just presented it as it's the 3-stage surgery. So the plan is there's 3 surgeries, and then we hope he'll live as long as possible. And now, supposedly, when they diagnose people, they tell you up front, there's 3 surgeries, and then you go to transplant. So we know that at some point in his life, he's going to need to transplant.
Okay.
We hope that we can get him to adulthood before that happens, because obviously it's easier to get a heart from an adult than it is to get from a child.
Yeah.
And it'll last longer, and he'll be stronger and bigger and everything else. And then he doesn't have to go through that as a child.
And who knows what medical will look like in 30 years from now,
Exactly.
It's just, I mean, look how far we've progressed. It's incredible to see where we've come. So
Yeah, absolutely.
exciting.
And like I said, because these things didn't even exist. This treatment plan that we have now didn't even exist 30 years ago. And constantly they're making advances, which is part of why we're contributing to this research too, is we hope that with time, things will advance even more.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, it would be amazing if Charlie didn't need a transplant ever, but it's likely that he will. We just don't know when.
So you've now organized this softball tournament, you and your husband. So tell me a little bit about this tournament, why you started it, what is it going towards, and how people can get involved.
Okay. So the tournament was actually my husband's idea. He is a big baseball, softball, sports lover. My household, when I grew up, no sports, none.
That was like my first question when I was like talking to you. I was like, so do you like sports? She's like, absolutely
No,
not.
it's not me. My parents either of their households were not raised with sports.
Yeah.
But my husband, it's just him and his brother, and they're very sports oriented. He always played baseball when he was young. He played a number of other sports too. And then years ago in Burbank, he's been playing in the Parks and Rec in Burbank for years. I would say probably at least 15 years or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he started a softball team with a bunch of buddies. We were newly married, so it's got to be quite some time ago. And the friend that I mentioned, at that time we were both working at Children's, and he overheard us talking about work one day and a patient that we were caring for or whatever. And him and the other husband, they started the team, and he heard us saying something about the pain team. And he was like, "What are you talking? The pain team?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, the magic pain team, stands for making aches go away in kids." And they manage like chronic pain in patients, pediatric patients who were there long term in the hospital. And they're like, that's it. That's the name for our team. And so they were the Magic Pain softball team. And if you play in Burbank, you might know them from many, many years ago.
Funny.
Eventually that team broke up or moved or whatever, but now he plays on 2 other teams in Burbank. He plays on, I think, Cool Arrows. I might be saying this wrong. And Bad News Bears.
I'm not going to hold that against
Not
you.
not the Bad News Bears, but the Bad News Bears. I think those are the 2 teams he plays.
That's awesome.
So he's been doing that for ages. Then we had our kids. Then our daughter in TK started playing softball. Him and another dad started a team way back when, I don't know, 2016 or something, through the Burbank Parks and Rec again. And they were the Fighting Unicorns, and they played for 7 years, I think, all through 5th grade. From TK to 5th grade, they played, and he coached, and more coaches and more kids joined the team with time. And then the team broke up when they kind of graduated 5th grade. Then she joined another team this last fall for middle school.
He's just like always, he's in it always.
He didn't coach this season. This was the first time he didn't coach for her, and it was really hard.
Oh, sitting on the sidelines.
Yes, it was kind of nice for me because I'm like, I finally had him in the stands with me, but it was hard for him.
Yeah.
But then our son, he plays the East Valley, and he plays baseball, and he's played since he was 3, I think, and he's now 7.5. He coaches his team too.
Yeah. Okay. I see a pattern here.
Yes. So it's a very baseball, softball, sports family now. And the plan is actually for Charlie to start to play with Little League, Burbank Little League in the spring. He's going to join a team with one of his good buddies. We had originally considered a team called Piper's Pals.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
You heard of them? So they have a team for children with disabilities here in Burbank, and they have a daughter, Piper, who has some issues, and so we know them well, and like our girls softball team helped them out a couple times, so we had seen them play, and we were originally considering having Charlie play for them, but then his friend reached out and was like, hey, do you want to play? And we just thought that it might be a better fit for him just to be with his buddy, so...
Oh, that's
exciting.
The plan. Okay. So then you came up with this idea. What is the title of your tournament called?
The title is Charlie's Champs.
Okay.
And it is a basic softball tournament.
I don't know anything about softball tournaments. So it's like a 1 day
It's a
tournament.
1 day event.
February 3rd, right?
Yes.
At George Izay Park?
Yep, it's at Olive Park. The city is letting us use Olive, which is amazing. We have at least 3 fields booked. Depending on how many teams sign up, we may or may not add the 4th field.
Okay.
There's 3 divisions that are available. There's a men's rec, a men's competitive, and then a co-ed division. Typically, there's like 10 players per team, but obviously you could have more if you wanted to per team. It's a standard tournament format with Burbank softball rules, which can be found on the website or on the Burbank website. It's a round robin start, and so each team will play each other once.
Okay.
And then based on that, they'll get ranked, and then it's single elimination after that to determine.
It's all 1 day, so they'll just like go from game to game to game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And you have food trucks coming.
Yes,
and
we have
some businesses involved, right?
Yeah, we have the burnt to a crisp truck is already lined up.
Truck.
Yes, they're great. I love those guys. They're planned to come. The snack stand should be open. It will. It's planned to be open, so there'll be like treats and ice creams and stuff you can buy for the kids. All families are welcome. There's also a company called Prince Street Pizza who's going to be handing out samples of their pizza, and it's really good.
Oh, awesome.
And we're trying to find like a face painter or some sort of somebody that could come and maybe do some fun stuff for the kids who might be there.
I know some people.
Oh,
so I'll
awesome.
let you know after this.
That'd be great. Just to make it more like family friendly, and if families are there kind of hanging out for a while certain people are playing, the kids don't get bored.
Yeah.
Things like that. So We have a number of sponsorship options on the website. We're hoping to get sponsors from local businesses or larger companies or anybody like that. Anybody can just make a donation as well.
Okay.
But ideally, we'd love if like a company would sponsor a team.
Okay.
So far, we have Bruise Brothers who are sponsoring their own team to play. Which is awesome because I think quite a few of their employees already play softball in Burbank too, so that's great. So they donated generously, and they're going to be there playing. Some of the other sponsors, if it's okay to mention.
No, absolutely.
My brother's business is called Boulevard, BLVD. It's a commercial real estate company, and he does stuff all over the country, but mostly here in Southern California. So they're a sponsor. The karate studio where our kids go, it's called SoCal Karate Kids, and a good friend owns that. They're a sponsor as well. There's my husband's brother owns like a mobile gaming company called Magnetic, and he has a really fun game called Art Heist, so they're a sponsor. And then one of the biggest ones that we have so far is actually Jackson Guitars. The guitar company. So the connection there is that Jackson Guitars, the original Jackson guitar was designed by my uncle, who's Randy Rhodes. He was my mom's brother. He grew up here in Burbank. He was a guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne back in the early 80s and Quiet Riots. And he happened to be inspired. At one point, he flew on the Concorde jet, the one that goes like super fast to Europe or something. He flew on that, and that inspired him, and he was like sketching a picture on a napkin or something like that. And the man, I think his name is Grover Jackson, maybe. Hopefully I'm not getting that wrong. He saw the drawing. He worked for a different company at the time, and that was the first ever guitar that he made. That was a Jackson guitar, and he named it the Jackson guitar. So my uncle has a number of guitars, but one of them is a Jackson.
Okay.
Or maybe a couple. I'm probably getting this all wrong. Anyway, so the company, my mom is still in close contact with him and with the company. The company is donating a guitar that we can raffle off to earn money as well from the raffle tickets, and that will also go to Heartworks, all of that money. And somebody can win the guitar, which is amazing.
So you have to be there.
You don't have to be there.
Show up to buy the raffle ticket?
No, we're going to figure out a way. We're not sure yet. You can buy tickets online.
Okay.
And anybody can enter. I think we're going to keep it in the United States for now because he does have a number of fans worldwide.
Yeah.
But we're going to keep it just to the mainland U.S. states because we do have to ship it.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to be pretty pricey. But we are going to raffle off the tickets. I think $10 a ticket, but don't quote me on that. This is literally like brand new information.
Yeah, you were saying this is like, they haven't even dropped yet, so this is like exclusive right now. Yes,
it's just been in the works like the last like literal day or two. So we don't even have anything to post yet on the socials about it, but we're working on all of that.
So you can buy raffle tickets. You can donate directly from the website, which we'll link in our bio of our podcast. You can show up and be there too, right? You don't have to participate. You can come and watch, right?
Yeah.
But if you did want to participate, how much was it for a team?
I think it's $400 for a team, which really isn't bad because if there's 10 players, it's only like $40 a person.
And they get a shirt, right?
You get a shirt. They're going to be a goodie bag with swag and stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll get, hopefully, if we get enough teams, the plan is for each team to play 3 games.
Wow.
Which, for $40, that's pretty good. And that all of the money that you pay is going for a really good cause.
Yeah. So let's talk about Heartworks. So all the money you're raising, you're donating to Heartworks.
Yeah.
And that is an organization that you've been in contact recently for some of Charlie's treatments.
Yes. So the connection there with Heartworks is, I think I started to say this a little while ago. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Charlie was diagnosed in Heart Week. That's what I was going to say. In Heart Month. And a few days before he was diagnosed, there was a post on Facebook by Children's Hospital And they said for the first time ever, Children's is going to participate in a clinical trial with the Mayo Clinic to try using infants' own cord blood from from the placenta, from the umbilical cord, and use it to inject it into their heart to help with hypoplastic left heart syndrome.
Wow.
Yes, this was 3 days before we were diagnosed.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember seeing
So that was like fresh on your mind then.
So I remember seeing coworkers, like a bunch of people were sharing it. There was like emails going around at the hospital, and I mean, it kind of went in one ear and out the other. But I was just like, oh yeah, that's that really bad one. That's cool that they're doing that. Cool, yeah. And then 3 days later,
chills on my body.
right?
That's so
3 days
weird.
later, we got diagnosed.
Oh my gosh.
First at the perinatologist, then we got really lucky that we got into Children's pretty quickly for a cardiology diagnosis. So it was like confirmed within 24 hours or a little more. And when we saw them, I was like, well, what about that new study? What about that new stem cell trial?
Yeah.
And they're like, what? How do you even know about that? I'm like, because I work here. I saw the email. And they kind of threw them off. But
how funny.
But so Children's participated in and is still participating in this this clinical trial. The organization that started it is the Todd and Karen Wanick Family Program for HLHS at the Mayo Clinic. And then they started this consortium. So there's a number of hospitals around the country who participated in this clinical trial. HeartWorks is the fundraising arm of the Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
So they're the ones that like get the donations and put it to good use for the researchers and the doctors to do what they need to do this research. They do a lot of clinical trials. They do this umbilical cord blood collection clinical trial, which we were a part of for Charlie. They do genetic investigation clinical trials. And then a really cool thing, if you go on their website, you can see some of these news articles and things that they're doing. They have a bioengineered cardiac tissue clinical trial. So what they're doing is they're testing the feasibility and safety for autologous. That's like cells from your own body. It's the skin cells. And then they're manufacturing those skin cells into cardiac cells.
They're changing them?
They're changing the skin cells into heart cells.
Wow.
And then, or of cardiac lineage. And those cells would be delivered into the heart muscle as well as the cord blood ones were before.
Yeah.
You go on their website and you can see them with these cells, and the cells are beating like actual hearts.
Wow.
It's incredible to see.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. So, I mean, how amazing would it be if they could take Charlie's own skin and turn it into his own heart?
Yeah.
That he could have transplanted with his own heart someday in the future. I mean, I know it sounds unbelievable, but 30 years ago, these children didn't even survive. There was no hope for them.
Yeah.
In another 10, 15, 20 years, who knows? Because with transplant comes so many other issues and side effects. And, you're basically, people think like, oh, you get a heart transplant, you're cured, you're better, yay. But transplant comes with its own set of complications and issues too, because of rejection and all these other things.
Yeah.
So getting a heart from yourself, if that was even possible, something
That's
to that
crazy.
degree, right? That would be amazing.
Wow.
But I mean, even just trying to find out like genetic investigations of
Yeah.
why these things happen.
Yeah.
Matthew and I both have a cousin on each of our sides of the family that has a coarctation of the aorta, which is also a left-sided heart condition. So it seems hard to believe that there's not some sort of genetic connection there that would cause this to happen. And, with more research and stuff, like maybe we could find out why or how to prevent these things from happening to other people, you know? And I'm that person like with a nursing and a science background. I'm like, I need to know why. Why did this happen? Like, how did this happen? How can we keep this from happening from other people? And what can we do to help other people not have to go through this and have their kids suffer like Charlie has had to suffer?
Yeah.
So anyway, we did get into that stem cell trial, and they did collect the cord blood when Charlie was born, and he had the stem cells injected into his heart, of his own stem cells in the second surgery, and then again into his heart for the third surgery. So when he had it at the second surgery, he was like the fourth child at CHLA, I think, to have it done, and something like the 12th or 14th in the nation who had
Wow.
ever had that done. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's another thing to give us hope. I don't
Yeah.
know that it is going to even make any difference, but the more people do things like this, then the more hope there is for children like Charlie in the
Yeah.
future.
So this is a really important organization. They're doing a lot of great work. So I really hope you're getting those donations. What was your goal, and do you know where you're at right now?
Yeah, so our goal initially was 10,000. The last I checked, we were up to 8.7. I
Wow.
think that was yesterday, maybe. So I think we've gotten a few more, and we're probably a little higher than that. We actually increased our goal to 15,000
Do it, girl.
because we're like, well, we're doing really good. We still
Yeah.
have like 2 weeks. We don't want people to stop donating.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we didn't, get people to stop by
Yeah.
doing that. I don't want to sound greedy or anything, but
No, that is fantastic.
I mean, the more the better,
Yeah.
honestly. And we've gotten so many donations from friends and family, and it's amazing. But we really need teams and people to play at the
Yeah.
actual tournament too, because we really just want it to be a success. And we hope that we can make it an annual event, and with time, we can get the word out even more and more teams, and hopefully even add like a kids division. When Matthew said he wanted to do this, I was like, what? You want to do it for adults? Like, how many kids? We know so many kids
Kids
who
who play
play
baseball and
softball and
softball.
baseball. Who cares
Yeah.
about the adults? Get the kids in there.
That's hilarious.
So hopefully with time,
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
grow more and more.
And when is the deadline to register for your teams?
January 27th.
Okay, so it's coming up.
So it's
Everyone needs to
coming
go register
Mhm.
and donate. We're going to link all of that in our bio and our captions, and I'm really excited to see this
Thanks.
day and see the teams. What time do you guys start?
I think 8 a.m.
8 a.m. till
Yeah.
very long.
until, well, it depends on how many teams
Yeah.
we get, but hopefully it'll be a full day.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah.
Talking about Charlie, I can't wait. He'll be at the tournament.
Yes, he's gonna pull the raffle ticket for the
Aw.
guitar.
Okay,
He'll be there. I don't know how long
Yes.
he'll make it.
that's a long day for him.
Yes, but he'll be there at least part of the day.
Okay. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you reach your 15,000. So if you're listening, you need to go donate. Go to the link in the caption of the bios and help support Charlie.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you guys for
you.
listening, and I'll see you in another episode.
My Burbank Talks would like to thank all of My Burbank's advertisers for their continued support. Burbank Water and Power, Cusimano Real Estate Group, UME Credit Union, Burbank Chamber of Commerce, Game Credit Union, Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, Community Chevrolet, Media City Credit Union, UCLA Health, Tequila's Burbank, Logix Credit Union, Hill Street Cafe, Bertain Escobar Wealth Management, and the UPS Store on 3rd Street.